Well, you're listening to Charles Houssiere here, 713-626-3700. And also, we've talked about some of the FDA's role, and I just can't believe my ears, and I don't think our viewers can either, that the FDA says it's basically grandfathering in these products that were made in the 70s, and these guys got carte blanche to make that piece of garbage there that's causing all of this pain and it's defective, and all the Botox and everything. How are they getting away with this, and why haven't the legislators changed this and told the FDA to get on the stick?
Well, what has happened is that in 1976, the Medical Device Act was passed. Any device that was manufactured before that was grandfathered in. So if I could make a device that was, quote unquote, based upon the manufacturer's statements, substantially equivalent to the previous device, I could sell it. And I would produce that application called a 510K application to the FDA, and the FDA would look at it and say, okay. And so you'd say, well, I wonder how many of those happened. I wonder what percentage of the devices that were approved by the FDA were approved under this grandfathering or 510K procedure versus ones that went through a rigorous analysis of at least 1,200 hours of the FDA to determine whether or not those products were defective or not, or would perform as they claimed, or were safe and effective for the procedures. About, in this particular period of time, over 3,000 of these devices went in under the 510 grandfathered in. Only 20 went in under the rigorous PMA, pre-market approval process. What does that tell you? That tells you that the FDA either is understaffed, cannot analyze these, and the manufacturers are producing devices and telling the FDA that these things work, and no one is really checking them before they go out on the market, and it results in things like these products that I have discussed with you today, and many others.
Well, the Smith knee, let's take that example and stay on it, because you articulated it so well about how it's working, what they try to do to fix it on the back end, and the damage it suffered. How many clients are you getting from this? And the other thing is, Charles, I practice and try cases all the time. Before you told me, I had not heard about the Smith knee litigation or anything, and I don't think a lot of lawyers know about it, and I don't think a lot of the general public know about it. How can you find out, number one, if you had a Smith knee device? A lot of people out there, the consumers, as other guests that I've brought on have said, the healthcare system is an enigma. I mean, how do they even begin to understand that they had a device like this put in, and how can they get help?
Well, you and your doctors are at the mercy of the manufacturers. If the manufacturers don't tell the doctors of the reports of problems with their products for whatever reason, then how's the doctor supposed to know that? They don't. In this particular case, the company, once it got a number of complaints, wrote a letter to the doctors. But they didn't go out to the doctors and say, give me a list of your patients. Please send this letter to them. Tell them that there's a problem, like a recall on an automobile or something like that. They didn't do that. They obviously didn't want the patients to know. So for you, if you have a problem with a medical device, my advice to you is see your doctor. Ask your doctor, is there a problem? Look at the FDA website. See if that product has been recalled or if there's been some complaints. And if not, and you really feel that you have a problem with your product, do a benefit for others in our country and report it to the FDA. Report it to your doctor in the event that maybe there are others out there just like you.
Charles, I'm going to have to say it, and maybe some of the people out there thinking what I am, I don't have a lot of confidence in the FDA right now. With everything you've been telling me, if we call the FDA, let me play devil's advocate here, someone calls, are we going to be put on hold forever? What has your experience through the discovery process, through trying these pharmaceutical cases? How responsive is the FDA right now? If somebody, let's just cut to the chase. Is a person better off getting a lawyer than calling the FDA straight up?
Yes, but I still advise you to see your physician and talk to them about this and see what they know. I still advise you to contact the FDA. There are amazingly, for as low a pay as many hours and as overworked as those people are in government agencies like the National Transportation Safety Administration, NHTSA, and the FDA. I'm amazed at some of those people and how conscientious and caring and interested they are in problems and want to work. Unfortunately, some are not. And unfortunately, they are political appointees. And I don't want to get into politics, but if we go back over the last several years, I think you can think about what type of people would be appointed by the current administration and what those people's leanings and interests would be.
Well, and we've had other guests on, that we've had like doctors that come out with the courage to come out and speak, and we're getting the same message: profits over people. And medical devices are only one problem. You handle other product cases. I've seen the documents you showed me today, and I was just astounded. I don't do product liability against, big companies like Ford. Let's talk about that. And I'm not singling out just one company. I'm sure, like there's Ford, there's others. There's a lot of defective products. But you've taken on the big guns over there, and it's you against how many lawyers?
Many, hundreds.
Just to and flesh that out, like you did the anatomy of the medical malpractice lawsuit. If a person is killed, injured, burned in a passenger vehicle like Ford, let's just start off with, do they know, or do you have documents that prove that they knew that there are certain things in a car that are killing people?
Absolutely. Our firm, whether it be a small case or a large case, feels a responsibility to the American public and to the citizens of the state of Texas. If you are hurt, and any member of your family is hurt, or if there's a product that's going to hurt you, we want to help. And so do all the other trial lawyers and my colleagues across the state that do trial law. We're interested in families and people and protecting families and people. We started product liability litigation in our law firm back in the era of the Bronco II. Some of you probably were not born yet. That was one of the first SUVs patterned after the Jeep CJ7s that rolled over, as I say, like a rubber ball. Those were made by two different companies. The CJ was manufactured by someone other than Ford. Ford copied the design. I complained to Ford and said, you need to do something about this Bronco II. They said, oh, we will. We're going to make the Explorer. I said, great. What is the Explorer? I didn't even know at the time. It hadn't come out on the market. I found out later on 60% of the parts were actually Bronco IIs. They rolled over as well. And you might remember the Ford Firestone debacle. We were integrally involved in that. Actually, we handled more cases on Firestone than I think anyone in the state of Texas did. We've had Ford engineers and Firestone engineers and lawyers in our office at that time talking about it. Today we have another problem that we stumbled upon. A gentleman was in Central Texas. He had a vehicle that he had bought from Ford, given to his daughter, and it was having some electrical problems. The battery was going dead. So he said, look, I'll take it out to my friend, we'll check it out. His friend, the mechanic, was busy. He took it out to his hangar. He was a crop duster. He parked in the hangar and was working out in the runway. He turned around and the whole hangar was on fire. Burned all his airplanes up, burned down his business. Ford said, well, do you know what's wrong with the vehicle? Do you know what part it was? And I said, no, I don't know. And they said, well, if you don't know what's wrong with it, we're not going to do anything about it. And so we got involved in that, and we worked with NHTSA on this, the National Transportation and Safety Administration. And they opened an investigation on Ford. And we learned that there's something called a cruise control deactivation switch, or safety switch, so that when you step on your brakes, something's got to turn that cruise control off. That's the cruise control deactivation switch. Here is a picture of that switch. What it is a device that is both hydraulic and electrical. When you step on your brakes, hydraulic fluid goes into that switch, and opens it up, turns it off like a light switch turns off.